Let's hear from the Romney camp right now. Ed Gillespie joining us this morning. Ed, thanks for getting up this morning. You heard Robert right there. Masterful, theatrical, fundamentally dishonest. I guess his basic point now about Governor Romney on his tax plan is either that he's not telling the truth about the scale of the tax plan or abandoning his economic theory. Which one is it?
Well, the problem they have is that the debate performance on Wednesday evening was not a matter of style, it was a matter of substance. And Governor Romney laid out a plan for turning this economy around, getting things moving again. He had a fact-based critique of President Obama's failed policies that the president was unable to respond to. And today and since then, the Obama campaign, they remind me a little bit of a 7-year-old losing a checker game, and then instead of being frustrated at the outcome, they sweep the board off the table. The fact is that if President Obama is reelected, as Governor Romney pointed out, we're going to have continued chronically high unemployment. We're going to have continued massive debt instead of moving toward a balanced budget. We've had this week the $4th trillion deficit under this president. Healthcare premiums are going to continue to rise. Up to 20 million Americans will lose their employer-based health insurance under Obamacare, and they'll raise $716 billion from Medicare. Governor Romney has a different approach that will move this country in the right direction, and that's what they're frustrated about, George.
Let's talk about that approach. Let's get to the bottom of this $5 trillion disagreement. Governor Romney is now saying he will not increase the deficit with his tax cuts. He is saying he will not increase taxes on the middle class. So is he saying that if he cannot come up with enough loopholes and deductions, closing of deductions, to pay for the tax cuts, which amount to about $5 trillion, that he will scale them back?
What he has said, George, is that he is going to cut tax rates across the board by 20% and offset those cuts with eliminating deductions and loopholes for the upper income families, protecting them for middle class families. You can pay for it. There are 6 studies that say that you can do that. You can broaden the base and lower the rates. That would foster economic growth. And we've done that in the past. There's one study that says that you can't, that uses the word assume or assumption 68 times by a liberal think tank, and that's what Gibbs and others point to. Let me just pin you
down on the fallout. If it does turn out that the deductions do not make up for the cost of the tax cuts, does Governor Romney say that he will scale back the tax cuts?
George, what he has said is that it's going to be, he's not going to increase the deficit in bringing down the rates and broadening the base.
So he will scale back the tax cuts.
We saw that done, by the way, as you know, when Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House and Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States, and they worked together on a very important and significant tax reform. We believe that it's time for that again, and that you can do that working across the aisle. Obviously, Governor Romney, if he becomes president, would hope to have Republican majorities in the House and the Senate, but you would have to work across the aisle, and we believe it can be done, and there are 6 studies that show that you can.
But the promise then that takes precedence, because I do want to move on, is the one about not increasing the deficit. You also heard Robert Gibbs there talk about Big Bird and the targeting of Big Bird by Governor Romney. You know, coming out of that, PBS cited polls showing that it's the most trusted public institution, and it only takes about 1/100th of 1% of the federal budget. You're now seeing Big Bird show up at Mitt Romney rallies. Was it a mistake to target him?
George, it wasn't a targeting. It was just pointing to one example. As you know, Governor Romney would move us toward a balanced budget with a 5% cut in non-security discretionary spending, and he would eliminate a number of programs and consolidate a number of others. I think with Jim Lehrer there from PBS, he made the point in a joking reference, but it's an important point. Look, if you have to borrow money from China to pay for these programs, is it worth it? That's the test that should be applied if we're going to impose this debt on future generations. And Big Bird, I can tell you, as the father of 3 children, grown now, but any father who's gone to a toy store knows that Big Bird is a pretty commercially successful entity, and whether or not we should be subsidizing it, and you can cite, oh, it's not that big a percentage of the budget. That's true, but every penny that you look and raise as a potential cut seems to be sacred with this administration, and you can't cut it, and they demagogue it. And I think the American people understand this is a big election and a big choice.
Let's talk.
And you have to make some tough decisions, and you have to find some things where it's not worth borrowing money and imposing debt on future generations. Big Bird would be pretty successful, I suspect, without a government federal subsidy. And and all that debt.
Let's talk about Friday's jobs numbers. It raised some suspicions among Governor Romney's allies on Friday morning. Jack Welch, the former chairman of GE, put out a tweet saying, "Unbelievable jobs numbers. These Chicago guys will do anything. Can't debate, so change numbers." Steve Forbes follows up and says Welch is right. Does Governor Romney put any stock in those theories? Does he have any suspicions at all about the BLS numbers?
George, the numbers themselves are very damning. When you look at it, we had fewer jobs created in September than were created in August, fewer jobs created in August than were created in July. Our unemployment rate has come down because since President Obama took office, for every new job created, more than 6 workers have left the labor force. If labor force participation was what it was when the president took office, unemployment would be around 10.7%. These jobs that were added in September were largely part-time jobs. So we still have 23 million Americans. That number has not changed at all, who are either unemployed or out of work entirely, or are underemployed, working, or out of the workforce entirely, or are underemployed, working part-time instead of full-time, or not in a job commensurate with their skills. Half of the college students coming out of, with degrees today are unable to find a job. This economy is not doing well, and the fact that you have a White House celebrating an unemployment rate of 7.8% with 23 million Americans out of work or unemployed or underemployed tells you a lot about the failure of this administration's policies, George.
Final question, bottom line, did Governor Romney do what he needed to do on Wednesday to take control of this race?
Well, I think there was certainly a shift in the dynamic. People saw the real Mitt Romney. I think that's why you saw the reviews. I know, George, that you thought it was a tie, but most other objective observers felt that Governor Romney did do a very good job of making the case for his policies, and that President Obama was unable to defend his past policies nor put forward a vision for future policies in the way Governor Romney did. But the most important thing is nearly 70 million Americans saw the real Mitt Romney, not what they've been seen in 30-second attack ads or in 12-second snippets on the evening news. They got to see and take a measure of him, and I think they saw someone not only who could be president by virtue of his experience in being a leader with being able to reach across the aisle as governor of Massachusetts, but someone who has a plan to get this economy moving again, which the president clearly does not.
Actually, Ed, that's not what I said. You ought to take a look at the whole quote, but thanks a lot for coming in this morning.
You bet.